All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another, I won't say jubilant, episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your host, the illustrious Alex Baquero and Christopher Coffee Condit, your American villain voices, as always, serving up the lukewarmest of lukewarm opinions, unlike the hot brew that is in our cups. This is a very early morning reaction to getting absolutely gobsmacked by Arsenal yesterday. Wanted to get something out to you all before the new year, so hopefully you enjoy it. A little bit more of our vibes-based podcasting today, at least in terms of recap. We will get into a little bit of a Forest preview towards the end of this, but boy, Chris, I think we got a lot of feelings to unpack as Villa's winning run ends yesterday. But before we get there, like, rate, review, subscribe, all the places beneath us. Seen a lot of you jump in. We'll get some shout outs later today if I remember to do that, since we don't have our usual rundown. But yeah, Chris, game aside, you had a lovely date night with thank you, Bridget. Thank you,
Bridget. Thank you, Bridget.
How'd that go?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was a good way to take my mind off of the game because obviously I was not happy in the afternoon. That was about as frustrating a watch as we've had this season. But the date night was lovely, and thanks to my mom and dad for staying here and watching our children. Because that's always fun when you have to plan a date night. And now I'm ready to get this over with. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, tired. It's early. Yeah, listen, it was great to watch this at the pub with the boys yesterday. Shout out Godfather, Pat Young. I don't think that we've given him a shout out in a little while. So,
True.
Shouts out to Pat Young. Showed up in the suit straight from work.
Of course, naturally. That's how he and I met, actually.
Mayoring Raleigh. So it was great. It was great to be with the boys. Yeah. Great to be with the boys, if not to actually watch what happened on the screen. Otherwise, got a pretty simple New Year's planned. As we know, Katie is very close to done carrying our child, so she does not have the energy nor desire to be out late this evening. So we'll go to dinner. We'll come back. Probably watch, I don't know, a movie, Stranger Things, whatever. Get her to 12:01, and then I think I'm playing video games by myself. So
you'll make it to 12:01.
I think she will. Yeah.
Oh man, no. I bet we'll be in bed by a tight 10:30.
That really? You don't even watch the ball drop?
No, I'm old.
Oh. What? So it's any other night for you.
This is your future.
Nah, I'm gonna be more fun than you.
I mean, that's fair, but you're gonna be very tired.
I'm sure I'll be tired. I don't function well tired. I'm very curious what this podcast is gonna be like when I'm sleep deprived, because I get loopy and I get silly. These might go off the rails a little bit.
Could be great.
Soon. Yeah,
could be great. Could be everything I've ever wanted.
It's gonna drive our subscribers through the roof.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna start getting hotter takes.
That's what we need. Spice. Yeah, absolutely. Sleep,
Chris, that's not the point of the podcast. It's not this podcast. Speaking of hot takes, Chris, let's talk about Villa's season imploding last night. So the lineup we got wrong.
Yeah.
In a couple different spots. Jadon Sancho came in on the right wing. Emi Buendia did continue down the middle. We got the two back lines right. Luka Dean starting at left back, so a little bit of rotation with Ian Maatsen. And Ollie Watkins up top. What did you think when you saw the lineups come out, Chris?
I mean, I thought it was a strange lineup. I was most surprised to see Sancho, I think, more than anything, because boy, Jay Villa Till I Die was right, and you and I were wrong. Could not have been more wrong, because because I didn't ever see that happening, especially not in that game. I don't think that Sancho was particularly effective, particularly defending. He was a liability out there, and every attack was coming down that Arsenal right. I'm sorry, that Arsenal left, our right, and he was having difficulty staying effective as a defender, and so that put more pressure, I think, than usual. Being without, I mean, both teams were missing players, so this is not an excuse by any stretch. But being without Kamara and Cash is an absolute killer. I thought that Bogard played well enough at right back, but he's not Matty Cash, and I really think that we could have used the more effective midfield of Kamara, Onana, and Tielemans. It was a game, particularly in the second half, but we'll get to that. But where Arsenal really dominated the middle of the pitch and knocked Villa off the ball pretty effectively, I think, for the most part in the first half. And Villa's chances when they came, and they did come, were almost entirely on the counter. It wasn't through the typical, build up and possession and things like that. It was quick line breaking passes on the counter that created chances for Villa. But all in all, just to get back to the lineup, I thought it was a strange one, and I don't think Jadon Sancho was the right call. But again, like I always say, Unai Emery has won a lot more than I have, so I can't really fault him for trying it. And Villa were not the better team yesterday, and they were not the better lineup. And Arsenal adjusted to their players being out better than Villa did. And that's a really long answer, but I have a lot of thoughts on this game.
Yeah, to try and keep it just to the lineup. My thoughts just to line, because we'll talk about some of that other stuff as we get into the first half. I was surprised to see the lineup that we put out there, particularly less so Sancho, because we did say that an opportunity for Villa was going to be to attack down the wings with Morgan Rogers and whoever played on the right hand side. I thought it was going to be Daniel Malen.
Yeah.
But no McGinn in particular as well, I think was surprising. And, it put a lot on the shoulders of Amadou Onana because Bogard, not a natural right back. We've been over this repeatedly on this podcast. He has certainly come up leaps and bounds this year to become an incredibly effective player for us, rotation piece through the center midfield. I think were he to only have to step in for an injured Boubacar Kamara, that is a much different game. But you saw a few times in the first half in particular, Arsenal were really able to either draw him out of position or, take advantage of his positional unawareness to slip someone in behind down that side. And when you have Jadon Sancho, who gives about 10% of the defensive energy that John McGinn does, that becomes all the easier to do. So, it really left our right side exposed. Left a lot of ground for Amadou Onana to run around and cover up, Ezri Konsa to kind of cover up on that side. And that, I think, left us pretty imbalanced. I was also surprised, given that that note that I just made about Arsenal not necessarily having their first choice outside backs there, the fact that Morgan Rogers played down the middle. Now again, to your point, like the counter that we were running, it seemed to work a little bit, but I would have preferred to see him running down the wing rather than down the middle. Instead, you had Emi Buendia out there on the left wing, and Jadon Sancho, who, isn't necessarily the paciest winger. He's more the kind of guy that's going to be tricky with the ball at his feet in front of people on the right-hand side. So I don't necessarily know that I agree with Unai Emery that this was the most effective lineup for us to start in. I think McGinn probably should have been out there, and I think Daniel Mallon as well. You also highlighted an interesting point when we come to the lineups of you're right. Absolutely no excuse. Like, you need to be able to play through rotation pieces. Forget Cash and Kamara, didn't have Ross Barkley available, for example, don't have Pau Torres available as someone else who can definitely help us counter the Arsenal pressure when it's up there with his ability to pass the ball and play through the lines. So Villa are missing four very, very important pieces. Arsenal missing Declan Rice, all that kind of stuff. We saw on Twitter in the lead up to this how Arsenal can essentially field two first choice 11s that would probably qualify for the Champions League, right? As you like to say, they've spent near 800 million pounds building
net.
Yeah, that's right. They have lost 800 million pounds in the red building this squad over the course of a decade.
That's 5 seasons. That's 5 seasons. Five windows. Yeah.
Fair enough. Over 5 windows, building this squad. I was trying to give them more credit than that, but fair enough.
5 years, 10 windows, yes. I guess, but 5 years.
All right. So let me start this point again. They have spent 800 million pounds in 5 years building this squad. Villa have a net positive spend over the course of that time. And so you see
negative 63. I just want to get that right too.
You see the difference in what we have to call on and where you go down, where when Villa are missing 4 quality players out of the first 11, we've got 4 teenagers on the bench, right? Guys who never otherwise would see minutes. And I'm glad that they got a few minutes in the end of this. It's like probably the only silver lining that we can see. And so, we were having an interesting discussion in the bar, and my position is that Boubacar Kamara is a much better footballer than Matty Cash. I don't think anybody is going to debate that, right? And he is more valuable long-term, I would say, to Villa's success than Matty Cash. That being said, I think we also can carry his absence more so than Matty Cash. And I kind of hinted at this earlier, that if Cash doesn't get suspended and is playing that game, Lamar Bogard, I think, can effectively step in, play that Kamara number 6 role. Onana gets to stay in the 8. Yori stays in the 10. We keep that midfield packed. And I think Villa have a much better opportunity at winning that game than when Bogard needs to step in for Matty Cash at right back. The delta from Matty Cash down to Bogard as opposed to Kamara to Bogard is much greater. And I think of all our misses yesterday that we could have potentially had, put the injured guys Pau aside. I think Pau changes this game head and shoulders above everybody else. But not having Matty Cash, I think, was crucial for that reason and that reason only, because of the opportunity cost of who's stepping in for him and what can they do in that role relative to what he does.
I agree 100%. And like I said earlier, we've always been a no excuses pod, and Unai Emery is very much a no excuses manager. So this is not to say that I don't want to be one of those podcasts that are just moaning and saying, "Whoa, injuries, blah blah blah," that you constantly hear from fans of other teams. One in particular. I wanted. It is Matty Cash, and I've been on this train for a long time. Positionally, Matty Cash is probably our most important player because of what you said. The drop from him to Bogard or him to Garcia is so big, and the difference that he makes, out there is so big. Villa can deal with injuries to Pau Torres, suspension for Kamara, even an out of form Ollie Watkins. But we can't. It's extremely difficult to deal with Matty Cash not being able to play right back. because we just run out of options. And we saw the same thing last season when Ezri Konsa had to go play on the right for quite a bit. They're just less effective as a squad. And like you said, I think having Jadon Sancho out there as well really hurt the defensive shape of the team. And I think the one it hurt the most was you kind of hinted at it was Onana, because he was having to cover so much space to the right-hand side of that midfield that he was running his legs off in the first half. So it's not where he's most effective positionally. Onana, he's much better in the middle of the pitch, standing up and making tackles and releasing players with quick passes to start a counter or to regain possession. So that sort of changed everything. Now, like I said, Arsenal had a lot of players out too. They have a deeper bench, and they were able to overcome those injuries much more effectively than Aston Villa were, and particularly in the second half. But yeah, it was a tough watch, and you and I were trepidatious about the lineup when we saw it, and I think unfortunately we were proven right.
Yeah, so let's get into some of these match phases. You are right that Arsenal certainly, I think, had the better balance of play in the first half. And I kind of just want to cover the first half in totality, but before we get into some of our thoughts on the second. And yet I've read a lot of articles over the course of the last 12 hours because it is so early in the morning. I've read a lot of articles over the last 12 hours that have said, like, Villa actually won the first half. And I think part of the reason for that is much like against Chelsea. Yes, Arsenal had the better balance of play, but Villa had the better opportunities. You know, we were under it for a large portion. It was actually kind of funny looking at the halftime stats when we were watching the pub to see that Villa actually maintained 47% possession. They only completed 20 fewer passes than Arsenal. And I remember turning to Pat and I was like, is this for the right game? Like that does not look like the half that I watched. I was expecting 65% possession to Arsenal, like 300 to 120 passes. Now I don't know what the entries into the final third would be or something of that sort of halftime, but still, Villa got everything they wanted out of that half. They kept it at 0-0 going into halftime. Onana played great. They were able to release multiple opportunities on the counter. I was shocked that with the first choice center back pairing of Saliba and Gabriel that Arsenal were so open through the middle. And I think that's a testament to how good Declan Rice is and how much he kind of plugs those gaps that Zubimendi just doesn't. I remember like Yuri Tielemans had a great one over the top that went through that really should have been an opportunity, all those kind of things. Anyway, point is, two great opportunities fall to Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins once again misses two great opportunities. And unfortunately, to something that you hinted at earlier today, this was a game where Villa could not cope with needing to carry an out of form Ollie Watkins. Your central striker needs to finish those two chances and put Villa up at least 1-0 going into the break, if not 2.
Yeah, I agree. Particularly the first chance, I think you've got to at least put that on frame. I mean, that it can't be what it was. It can't be a miss. It has to be on frame and be a forced save, because that there's no reason that and let me sort of regain my thoughts here. Sorry. An in-form Ollie Watkins finishes that goal. That's a goal. And so I was particularly frustrated by the first one. The second one, I think you're right in that Watkins really needs to go all out for that, because that could be a potential backbreaker for the late goal before half. And it just he didn't slide for it, try and get a toe to it, anything like that. So It was a great ball too, by the way, to try and set that up. But yeah, those two chances, particularly for me, the first one, I was worried that Villa would end up ruining it, and boy, did we! Because you get that first one, and it's 1-0, and you know what's going to happen at the Emirates when Arsenal go down 1-0 to Aston Villa, who are missing like 3 or 4 starters. It's going to start. You're going to feel that nervous chattering going around the ground, and I think it would have put a lot of pressure on Arsenal, and they potentially make another mistake. So that was a killer. I also think that there were a couple instances where Villa were not helped out by the decision making of the referee. I thought that Saka could have easily picked up 2 yellows. I think if he gets the first one, he won't get the second. But he fouled twice to stop a counter, and it was just a foul, not a yellow card. I thought it was strange that Arteta got a talking to for dissent and for playing defense. I've never seen that. I've seen him playing.
He does this, man.
I've seen him playing defense before.
Yeah.
I've never seen a referee just talk to a manager for dissent and for playing defense.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. This is something that I haven't necessarily paid attention to, but it was coming out all over the place in the lead up to the Villa match. How he really kind of takes advantage of the psychology of people's peripheral vision.
Yeah,
I will say he is tight to the touchline, does not stay in his box. There are multiple videos out there of a right back kind of receiving the ball, and he essentially closes them down to make them try and react and play the ball a little quicker. I mean, someone's got to do something about that. And I'm not – the league needs to do something about this and almost like immediately red card him for this stuff, because that's dirty.
That's league,
a dirty tactic. Yeah, that's Bush League. And you've seen a couple of videos of other players confronting him where he kind of retreats and it's funny or whatever. But like, yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that.
And again, like I was shocked that he only got a talking to for it, because like, what is the point of that? Hey, don't do that, you naughty boy. What is that? Like, what are you doing?
Don't ever call anyone naughty on this podcast ever again, you sick old man.
Just give him a card, even if it's yellow, but red would have been acceptable.
I'm okay with giving. By the way, you know that I am. A fundamental difference on this podcast is your belief that if the second offense is a yellow card, then you should get the second yellow regardless. And I kind of say, look, it's never been the case as long as football has been football for the second yellow card to be equivalent to the first. So like, I'm okay when it's not. This is actually something where I'm okay giving him 2 yellow cards for the same offense over the course of a game. He does that once, yellow card, does it again, red card, get out. No, you can't do dirty stuff like that over and over again.
And so like I think that that was a strange one to me, and I don't understand how one of those 2 Saka fouls was not a yellow card. And again, I think if he gets the first one, he doesn't commit the second because he's on a yellow. And I'm not saying that would not necessarily fundamentally change the game, but you never know. And when you foul to stop a counter, like it's always an automatic yellow, it seems to me, except for when you're a Big Six London club sometimes. And that is 100%. That is 100% perception. That is 100% perception. Right. But like,
I'm not here for that, but
I would like to know the explanation as to why neither of those were yellow cards, because they were fouls to stop counters, like the definition of a professional foul. And I thought Marino was also lucky to escape without a second yellow when he tackled.
That one's so borderline for me.
Yeah.
When it first happened live speed, I said, "Yeah, like I see your point, but it's not a yellow for me." Again, like, first yellow card offense, yes, but that's never typically a second yellow card offense. And then you see the replay and you see the way that he really just drags down his arm from behind.
Yeah.
And over the course of the last 12 hours, I have been moving more towards that might meet the barometer for a second yellow and therefore a red.
I think it's just something you don't often see from a player on a yellow to make a
That's
challenge
fair.
like that. And so that was the surprising thing to me.
And you see
And
that, like, a referee, a game of this magnitude with the score being what it was,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think referees are afraid to become the main character.
I think you're fair.
And
That's a fair point.
and
Yeah.
feel like they might be deciding this top clash by ultimately giving the red card for something that is not blatantly egregiously red.
I think that's a fair point. Yeah, the psychology of it. But yeah, so I like, and I'm not blaming that either. Like Arsenal outplayed Aston Villa,
Yeah.
particularly in the second half. It was that was frankly a disaster for Villa in the second. It was awful.
So let's talk about why it became a disaster, because I
Yeah.
think there's two, unless there's anything else that you want to
No,
touch
I'm
on.
good. I'm good.
We've done Saka yellows, Ollie Watkins misses, all that.
Yeah.
Jadon Sancho sucking. So as we move to the second half, I think as much as Unai Emery got his substitutions correct in the match against Chelsea, I think he got them wrong in this one. Who and timing. So, Amadou Onana comes off at halftime. He obviously suffered that injury towards the end of the first half. He was able to see it out, which for me, hope that he's good. Maybe not for Forest on the weekend, but Crystal Palace after that, or Spurs in the cup. And that ultimately proved to be one injury too many for Aston Villa. We talked about all he was covering for in the first half on the right-hand side, and you bring John McGinn in there. As great as John McGinn has been this year, it has not been as a deep-lying six
Yep.
playing cover for everybody else. I know he's played that role in the past to varying degrees of success, but um, it just became rampant at that point, and so obvious where the goal was going to come from. And so, if I'm gonna continue to criticize Unai Emery for getting it wrong in this game, what I probably would have done at half is something more similar to what he did around 60 minutes when he brought on Malin and Garcia for Sancho and Buendia.
Yeah.
And so what I probably would have done was brought on Garcia and brought on McGinn. I would have hauled off Sancho, brought Garcia into right back, and moved Bogard to right defensive mid. We've talked about the drop off from Matty Cash to Andres Garcia. So, but being what it is, but now you've got McGinn in front of him and you've got Bogard in the defensive midfield providing a lot more cover. Again, if we're going to talk about like deltas and opportunity cost, that's a lot better cover for a weaker right back in Andres Garcia than McGinn and Sancho are for Bogard in that position.
Yep.
And so, I think that swap at half would have probably given us a little bit more solidity and allowed us to see this out longer, as opposed to when McGinn goes in, the midfield was overrun at that point. It didn't have the legs, it didn't have the coverage, and Arsenal were just probing down that side, and we just didn't react quick enough to it.
I mean, I agree. It like I said earlier, it was a game in which Arsenal were really able to dominate the midfield. And I think you're right. I have nothing really to add in terms of what I would have done differently. I think that you would have been better served with McGinn and Bogard moving up with Garcia being at right back. It still would have been difficult, but you're better served defensively. And I would have liked to see, honestly, McGinn start. I thought that was a game where he needed to start, and it was strange to see him on the bench for such a big clash. But I've said this before, and I'll say it continually. We have to continue to trust the boss because he did win. We did win 11 straight leading up to this.
Yeah, and
but he
let's
did get this. He got this one wrong. And I think
that's a good point. Let's be clear about something, at least as far as like our standing here on the Red, White, Claret, and Blue podcast. Just because we criticize Unai Emery doesn't mean that we are doubting Unai Emery.
Yeah.
In the previous 12 games, moving forward, anything like that. Like, we are absolutely looking at this from a hindsight is 2020 and what our pea-sized footballing brains would do relative to Unai Emery's gigantic footballing knowledge. Like, absolutely, not trying to cast any doubt on the boss the way that, again, some other fan bases would, to say that he's not cut out for this title run-in or anything like that. We're simply analyzing the game and saying what went right, what went wrong, and what could have maybe been done differently. And in this one, listen, no one on this team is immune to criticism. And in this one, Unai Emery, I think, got it wrong.
I think he's going to take this and, he'll watch the film and he'll learn from it, and he'll see, he'll see opportunities and see different pieces he can move. It'll also just be good to have Cash and Kamara back, like bringing those two players back, and Powell coming back soon. Like that sort of changes everything, because you're no longer bringing on 4 teenagers, to 4 teenagers and Daniel Malen pretty much was what your subs were. So I think that it was going to be a tough game being away at Arsenal, who are top of the league and have been top of the league pretty much almost since the start. I think it was particularly difficult because Villa were so badly outplayed, and it felt sort of deflating in that way. So I expected more out of the middle of the park. And because that's where typically when Villa are going well, that's where Villa shine, is that midfield, sort of almost midfield 5 between the defensive mids and the 3 up top. And it was just a really, really, to go vibes on here, a really difficult watch. I was not enjoying myself at all watching that game.
So there are 2 goals that I want to talk about. The one, I think it was Zubimendi ultimately scored it. The one where Arsenal play right through the middle and slip him in, and he goes past and advancing Emi Martinez. I want to say that was the second one.
That was the second goal, 52nd minute.
Yeah. Fair play to them. Great offensive attack. I'm very disappointed at how Villa ultimately defended that one. It's a bad pass by Yori into Sancho. It is bad play by Sancho not to check to the ball more quickly than he does. It is then bad defense by Yori to not cut off the passing lane. It is bad defense by I think Lindelof to not step up and ultimately push him off sides. It is bad coverage by Ezri Konsa to cover the middle of the park. Like, it was just it was bad all across the field. But that is a well-worked goal by Arsenal.
I do think that was where Sancho was closed down by Arteta, though. I think he was on the.
No, it was a pass to the middle.
Was that the third one then that he got closed down? Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
So, it hat tip to Arsenal on that one.
Yeah.
From a Villa perspective, you can't give up the second that close to the first, right?
And the first was terrible.
And I think it was Tony in the pub was saying, listen, first goal, we got to ride this out for like 10 minutes and get our foot back in the game, get the subs in, all that kind of stuff. When you give up the second in such close succession, that's game done and dusted. So the 2 that I really want to talk about are the corner and then the multi offside that wasn't Cross's situation. So let's talk about the corner first. To give us credit, to pat us on the back, a couple weeks ago, we said that teams were doing this a lot with Marco Bisson, right? And now we see with Chelsea and Arsenal 2 games back to back, teams are doing this with Emi Martinez as well. I, in the past, have suggested that we needed to do this to keepers like Vicario at Spurs, who do not do well with a lot of players around them. And clearly, the Premier League is saying we are going to let you rough up keepers a little bit. We're not necessarily gonna make the keeper a protected species on corners in particular, where any brush against them is going to be called a foul. And Arsenal do this to great success. Chelsea did this to great success. And it's 2 weeks in a row where I really need to. I have some serious questions about Emi Martinez's priorities as these balls are coming in. A guy who typically, historically, has been incredibly strong and effective at commanding his box and taking those balls in the air.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating thing is he's a big, strong man, right? And to see him get knocked off like that there was contact there, certainly. But it wasn't.
I think he went straight up though.
Yeah, well, it wasn't egregious. You just have to fight through that and get to the ball and punch it. And look, man, it's clear that teams are going to be allowed to do it, as you said. And to be honest, I've been saying that should be the way things are for years. There's no reason that the goalkeeper should be more protected than any other player on the pitch in a corner situation. So you just have to use the strength you have and go get the ball, and don't worry about trying to draw a foul, which is what I think he's doing. He's trying to get a foul.
I completely agree.
But I make the play and don't leave it up to the official's discretion whether or not he wants to give the foul. So just make the play. That's all. Because I don't think he was particularly interested in trying to get that ball. I think he thought he was going to get the foul called there.
I agree. I think the poor decision making was twofold. It was first trying to get the foul there, and then second, it seemed very obvious he was trying to catch the ball, not punch the ball. And I think he needed to tip it over for another corner, punch it, go stronger and punch it out, get a knee up there to give you a little space between you and Gabriel. Gabriel, I don't, something. You can't catch that one. And all these things doing the rounds. It's funny. I've actually seen it less on Villa Twitter than from other fan bases. I've seen a couple Everton fans tweet out the screenshot of Gabriel up there saying that he elbowed Emi Martinez in the face, which, by the way, it's kind of fun to be the champion of the other 14, the non-Sky 6 clubs, and have them all be rooting for us in these matchups. I'm pouring a ton of cold water on that. Watching it live speed, watching the replay as many times as I did, he does not make contact with Emi Martinez's face. The screenshot that you're looking at, I think between the angles and where his elbow is kind of blocked off by Emi's arm, I appreciate you guys. I love all of you, and I appreciate you standing up for us, but this ain't it. Wasn't a foul. He jumped straight up, does not make contact with Emi's face. That's a good goal every single day, in my opinion. Emi needs to be stronger there.
Yeah, I also think that everybody roots against Arsenal in particular, not just
Sure.
I think when you're playing Arsenal, the other 19 are rooting for you for a multitude of reasons. I agree. I think that Martinez just has to be better, and that's, like you said, 2 straight weeks where he's getting pushed around in the box, and just use your strength, because you can overpower the defender in those situations in most cases, because you're coming from a jumping forward or jumping straight up. They're jumping, trying to make contact with a ball. The goalkeeper has an advantage there defensively to go get that ball. So that's what he has to do.
So let's talk about the third goal. I think it was the third goal, the double offsides.
The double offside, possible handball, or whatever. What was all that? Or possible foul in the box, like all that sort of stuff that was.
Yeah. So here's my thing on this. We both agree the slowed down freeze frame legislating of toenails needs to go.
Yep.
And when you watch this live speed, hell, even when you look at the freeze frame, both those guys look on. Yep. And so I'm not going to be hypocritical and come on this podcast and say, well, if you look at it from this other angle, the sleeve of Saka's shoulder was further than whatever, so like clearly offside. No, I'm fine with both of those. Yep. What I'm surprised they don't look at and don't clear, and again, we were watching in the bar, so like sound is minuscule. Maybe they did look at this, is the blatant shove of Victor Lindelof in the box right as he's about to try and jump and head that before it's recycled around. And because they didn't necessarily show the replay focusing on that element of the play, I can't tell you whether he would have gotten to that ball or not.
Right.
And if we sit here now and you tell me and there's a replay out there that kind of shows like, listen, if whether he's touched or not, like he's never getting to that ball, it's always going to the Arsenal guy because it's too high and he's too far or whatever, fine. But that is actually the one component that I would like VAR to look at and actually rewind and see, like, is this impacting Villa's ability to defend the play here? You could even just say it affects their ability to defend the recycled play because Victor Lindelof is now like 40 yards closer to his goal because of the shove that he took. Yeah. That is the one that I'm, maybe I shouldn't be shocked at, but that I would like some explanation. I'm going to demand an apology from the VAR official as to why they didn't at least flag that one for review.
PGMOL, you are once again welcome to come on this podcast. It's a standing invitation. By the way, never heard back on my last invite. So
shocker.
Yeah, I get that. I thought the same thing. They did not, as far as I could tell. Now I was not at the bar, but I was watching. I didn't hear them talk about clearing that at all. They actually were looking at offside and a potential foul on Villa, from what I understand.
A potential penalty foul. I think
in the box. Yeah,
right.
Maybe
that would have been as well. I don't know, but
it's one of those things that we've seen it happen before, where they go back in the buildup of play, and you ask yourself, where does that stop? There doesn't seem to be any kind of hard and fast rule on it. But I don't know. At that point, I don't know that it makes a difference. It may have made the scoreline less blatant, but I don't think Villa were winning that game after the second goal went in anyway.
Agreed.
So that's it's probably not a great take for content, but that's the way I feel about it. But I agree. I would like to understand the line of thinking there, because very well that I am always interested in the decision-making of officials, particularly on plays that are very subjective or seem to be very subjective, because much of soccer is played in a subjective manner for officiating, and it's a difficult sport to officiate. I thought it was a good goal. I never was worried about the offside. To me, that's never offside. Like, if you have a shirt sleeve or whatever, like it's now been how many 3 seasons of this podcast. I want that to be a goal every time. You're not gaining an advantage because your pinky was slightly further ahead of the defender. So I didn't want to see that chalked off for that reason, other than the selfish reason that I wanted no goal. But I wouldn't have liked the logic of it. So I have to say that was a pretty well worked goal from Arsenal. The way they moved the ball across the face of goal like that, and a nice finish. But I would like to go back and take a look at that shove on Lindelof, because I do think that changes the context of the play.
Yeah. So I don't even want to talk about Villa's goal or the fourth for
who
Arsenal.
Cares? It doesn't matter.
Let's jump into good point. I think we've covered all the bad points. So let's end on
all of it.
Points. Yeah, all of it was bad. So good point. And I want to be very clear. I'm saying this with tongue firmly planted in cheek. We tied on XG, Chris. 3-3 according to XG philosophy. He or she is absolutely doing a victory lap on this, which feels weird to me after Villa have done like 19 victory laps on XG philosophy. This to me, as we've kind of said, like XG or to your point of XG is becoming the exit velocity of soccer, where it's treated as this end all be all statistic when you really need to look at it with context. I will actually say Villa did not tie that game on XG. Villa probably got 2.5 XG from the opportunity that I don't know how in God's name McGinn misses it, and then Ollie Watkins tap in goal.
Yeah.
That game, until those two opportunities, when it is done and dusted and Arsenal have basically stopped attacking, was probably 3 to 0.75 of the two Ollie Watkins first half opportunities. So this is going to look great for our XG metrics as we move towards the end of the year. But like, this was not a game where I'm going to sit here and tell you it should have been a draw.
Right.
Could it have been a draw? If Ollie Watkins converts a couple of those early ones and Villa defend a little better, like, sure, but not based on the XG metrics. Right. As we've said repeatedly, Villa were wildly outplayed in this one. I guess now I'm going to touch on two things with that. Unbelievable play by Daniel Malen to even create that opportunity for Ollie Watkins. Again, why he didn't start, get more opportunities, I don't know. Yeah. Because this was, again, finally him playing in the role that he's supposed to play, not the central striker.
Yep.
And so I think if we do get another number 9, we might see an unleashing of Daniel Malen heretofore unseen during his Villa career. I hated the commentator saying that was a great save by Raya on John McGinn. He didn't move. McGinn kicked it at his nuts. That is much more a miss by John McGinn than a save by Raya. Anyway, those both are besides the point, unless there's anything that you want to add to them.
No, I mean, I think it's weird that the XG person behind that account, and I assume it's the guy who wrote the book. I don't know. But it's weird that he or she is taking a victory lap when his statistic is disproven there. That game proves what I've been saying and you've been saying all along, right, that XG is just one metric to consider. And
I think the point is that they have been saying there will be a regression of the mean, there will be a regression of the mean, there will be a regression of the mean. You can't outrun XG forever. And so the idea being we have overperformed XG for so long that now we're due to underperform our XG for quite a while.
Yeah, but I guess
it's a weird point, and it's a subtle point. I think the victory lap for them would be if we created 1 XG and scored 1 goal. Yeah. That it's like you're not going to be able to outperform it forever.
Yeah.
This to me isn't the point in their favor that I think they think it is, but I'm just saying I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah. I'll just go back to finishing chances is what is important. And Ollie Watkins missing that chance in the first half and missing the second chance in the first half, like that changes the game. That's what turned the game or could have turned the game for Aston Villa. So yeah, the only good point to me is that we get Cash and Kamara back.
Yeah,
that's it.
So I'll add another, and this leads into the larger implication on the season. We also don't play another current top 6 side until March. March 4th against Chelsea, and then I think the 11th back-to-back is Manchester United. Sorry, 4th against Chelsea, 14th against Manchester United. So it's an opportunity now to go on another run and pick up more points.
Yeah.
That's all you can kind of say. of the current top 6, we've beat 4 of them and now lost to Arsenal. So we'll see what we do on those reverses over the end of the season. But it's all there to play for. Yes, we are 6 points back of Arsenal now with a drastically inferior goal difference. Yes, City probably win tomorrow. And so, they go 4 points clear of us. We've still got a 7-point gap to Liverpool in 4th. We've still got a 9-point gap to Chelsea in 5th, a 9-point gap to United in 6th. So we're still very much comfortably in those Champions League places. And as you and I have said throughout the course of this winning run, it's great to feel like we're in a title race, but we are still keeping our eyes firmly planted down the table as opposed to up the table.
Yep. And I hope that you had United and Wolves to draw at plus 400 yesterday.
Jeez. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I did not. But anyway, yeah, I agree. It would have been nice to have a better showing, I guess, is my final thought on this game. I'm disappointed that it was so one-sided from Arsenal, and it's not often that Mikel Arteta in particular has gotten the better of Unai Emery from a tactical standpoint, but he did in this one.
Yep. Okay. Let's put this game to bed, on to another winning run, and hopefully that winning run starts this weekend with Nottingham Forest.
There we go.
Let's talk about Forest a little bit. Boy, they're bad. They're bad. They have some interesting results, and I will say, results aside, I think eye test would tell you that recently they've been playing better.
Yeah.
But that has not converted to 2 points on the pitch. They're losing left, right, and center. They do have some interesting wins over Spurs and Liverpool. Now, both of those teams have not been great. Yes, Liverpool have won 7 in a row. They were not winning 7 in a row when they lost to Forest. Middle of the road in Europa League, 3-2-1. I think that Sean Dyche's style probably converts a little bit better to playing in Europe than it does in the Premier League. And so as I was looking at their stuff, I mean, all the statistics, all the hallmarks are there of a traditional Dyche team.
Yeah.
Stay, don't get beat. We're not going to attack all that much. We're going to make sure that we play the same 11 week in, week out. I've got the guys that I trust, and they're going to be out there to just defend like mad and clog up all the passing lanes. So there's not a ton to analyze there. What I will say is that I was shocked to see Alexander Zinchenko on their squad. I had lost track of him since he had kind of fallen out of favor at Arsenal, and to go from such a wonder kid at Man City to 29 playing for Sean Dyche's Forest is not the path that I saw for him 5 years ago.
Sure.
The other thing, though, that I will call out, they tried to replace him clearly with Igor Jesus. Chris Wood really cooled off from the heater that he had last year. He's only made 7 appearances, has 2 goals. Igor, I think, has 1 goal, 11 appearances, 7 starts. Gibbs White also has not necessarily been as good since being held at gunpoint to stay at Nottingham Forest. I think he's probably looking over his shoulder a little bit to see if there are any snipers on the roof of the stadium. And yet with all of that, and again, I will say this with tongue firmly planted in cheek, they are 3 spots above Villa in the expected points table from Opta based on their expected goal return.
Where are they in the actual table, the one that matters?
They're 1 spot above the relegation zone.
So, okay, that's the important one. Again, no one who watches these two teams is going to tell you that Villa are only 3 points better than Forest. No one who actually watches the sport will say that. So I'll only add to a little bit to what you said. They play like a Sean Dyche team. They look like a Sean Dyche team. They have a handful of players that have an absolute ton of minutes because he never rotates. It's just not what he does. And I do think that in some ways that can set up to be difficult for Aston Villa because it's going to be a slog and they're going to make it a slog. And Villa are going to have to deal with that that sort of style of play. And I think that traditionally under Unai Emery, traditionally may not be the right word, but often under Unai Emery, this type of game has been a difficult one to create chances. And I think that's going to be the key, is how do Villa create advantages where Forest are just going to be happy to sit in a mid-low block and muck up the game. And I think where you look is you look to a player like a Morgan Rogers, a John McGinn, who I think should be back out there. Obviously, Tielemans and Kamara and Onana. Onana may not feature now because of his injury, but Tielemans and Kamara will be a big help. I think you really have to possess the ball through the midfield and use the effective players you have. One of the reasons I highlighted McGinn in particular is I think this is a game where he can create, because he'll draw players in and be able to get players on the turn or play a pass to somebody while he's holding up the ball in the midfield and create space that way, because that's space is going to be a premium. So that's the focus for Villa, for me, tactically. And I want to see how they attack.
Yeah, this could be one where we certainly try to approach it the way we did against Arsenal at home, where we try to kind of pull them out from their low block. Like you said, they're going to be a Sean Dyche team, and I will say that while I think Nuno is probably a better manager than Sean Dyche, in that he can do a little bit more in the attacking phase of play, how they move from that low block to a counter. The one benefit is that at least defensively they are similar in that respect, right? I'm not going to dive too deep into the tactics of like how they structure that low block, but like just from the simple principle of we are a defense first team, that has not changed year over year for Nottingham Forest. And so I'm not going to say that the change of manager, change of system should be that jarring for the players for them to be this bad. But being less drilled offensively, perhaps that makes it a bit easier for Villa to draw them out and then get in behind them. I think where the past two games have not necessarily been ones that I think have been set up for Emi Buendia to be successful in, this actually is one, because he is so creative in tight spaces and in picking apart defenses. It's not about him necessarily needing to run in transition. It's him getting on the ball, being able to take a man or two out with a dribble, with a pass, something like that. So I think he could be very effective here as well. The other benefit is that we are back to Villa Park, where obviously Villa are much better at home than we are away. So, there's from a Villa perspective, there are really no excuses here. You have to get a win. You have to start another winning run. I think a draw starts to make the fan base and the players a little nervous, looking over their shoulder at Liverpool, who could be 4 points back by the time we kick off on the weekend. So, I'm really looking at us to try and get ahead early. This isn't one where I think we want to keep it 0-0 to the break and just try and overwhelm them in the last 30 minutes. This is the opposite of the past two games, where I really want to see us start on the front foot, moving the ball around, using our width, stretching the defense at least horizontally, if not vertically, and really scoring a goal in the first 25, 30 minutes. I think we absolutely have to come out aggressive in this one.
I agree. I'd like to do the same. And I'm sorry if my children are coming through on the podcast. I can't tell if they are or not, but they are home on Christmas break, and they are playing with Grandma and Grandpa right now. So if you hear some shrieking or some laughing or whatever, that's just the kids enjoying some time with their grandparents.
They're not being punished.
That's right. No, I agree. And I just like, I don't like Sean Dyche's style of management or play, but you cannot question his effectiveness in terms of his ability to keep teams up, because he's not often relegated. He kept Burnley in the league for forever, just playing awful football. So I I think that you're right. I think that Villa have to be aggressive, and Villa have to come out and try and score early and put this team to the sword, because they do not have the offensive firepower to stay with Aston Villa. But the longer the game is 0-0, the better that is for them to try and nick a goal, or just get a point, a difficult point away for them. And that, I'm sure that's what Sean Dyche is hoping to get out of this game. If he can escape Villa Park with a point, he'll take that all day, given the situation.
So what do you see lineup wise?
I think, and I didn't write this down, so I'm doing this off the top of my head.
But so you're going to go with 13 players again?
Maybe, although sometimes I did write that down. I think it's going to be Martinez again. I don't think Bizot comes in here. You're going to go Cash, pardon me, Cash, Konsa, Lindelof. I think Ian Maatsen comes into this game. And then Kamara and Tielemans, because they're both going to be healthy, and I don't think Onana is going to be available. And then you'll go McGinn, Buendia, Rogers for me, and Watkins up top.
I have the exact same lineup, so I have nothing to add there. Okay. I do think that Daniel Malen will be an interesting sub in this one for his dribbling ability and maverick nature, I suppose. He just creates opportunities, but I don't think that he's out there from the start. That being said, he did start against Chelsea, I think, in this effort to manage Ollie Watkins' minutes. So with another game coming in 3 days, and obviously Crystal Palace coming 4 days after that, I do wonder maybe Malen does start just to give Ollie a little bit of a rest on that knee. That's the only change that I could potentially see being made from what we've said. I don't think Sancho starts again. Clearly did not work over the weekend. So Jay, Villa till I die. You might have been right technically in that Jadon Sancho was getting a start. I don't think that he's getting consistent minutes in the first 11. Still a rotation piece. And so, Chris, I will ask you then for a score prediction.
2-0 Aston Villa.
I also have 2-0 Aston Villa.
So 2-0 Forest incoming.
I was going to say, to be different, I will then say 3-1 Aston Villa.
Yeah. I in my head, there's no reason that Villa don't win this game, but the games aren't played in my head, so we'll see.
I wish they were. We'd be title challengers.
We sure would. The only thing I want to add is I cannot see John McGinn play against a Sean Dyche team without thinking about their interaction when he was at Burnley. And if you haven't looked that up, just Google John McGinn Sean Dyche coat. I'm sure that anyone who's listening to this podcast is aware of this, but it is one of the funniest interactions that you're ever going to come across in a professional sports setting.
Yes, maybe we can find that one sitting out on Twitter somewhere, and we'll repost that later this week. All right, Chris, to wrap up, YouTube shout outs, new subscriber, Ben W. Welcome to the crew. And
Ben White subscribes to our podcast.
Ben White subscribes. Ben, I will say Ben is white, according to his YouTube photo. Welcome to the crew. Definitely slide tackle into those DMs. And as always, shouts out to Black Country Villain for the comments on the last pod. So hope you like this one as well, my friend.
Happy New Year, pal.
Happy New Year. Chris, a happy New Year to you as well. Next time we chat, it'll be 2026, my friend.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a great 2025 from an Aston Villa perspective, and hopefully 2026 is even better.
I agree. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa. Hi, Mom and Dad.